Silver, you gotta understand your brand, right? This is my brand. This is what I'm known for. You just gotta. You gotta let that. Kind of gotta let that go. You gotta embrace the bald. Because it keeps me relevant. When am I shaving my head live on the podcast? I've thought about getting, because Miss Pop Gun cuts my hair and has been cutting my hair for like the past 11 years or so. I thought about doing, like, during this section, like the warm-up or whatever, the pre-show or whatever, just having her, like, give me a haircut on camera, just to prove that it does have to happen, because there's a lot of stuff up there that needs attention. Can't just let it go wild, unchecked. I can't grow my hair in mold. That's the secret. I'm gonna design a logo for you. It revolves around my shiny cranium. If you want to give me free art, yeah, I'm not gonna turn that down. Thimbo IHOP does that on a daily basis. Listening in public? You mean a bunch of randos can hear me right now? Who's that good-looking fella on your phone screen there? Oh, I see. I can be offensive. I'm not, no. I don't have my mature filter on. I took that thing off. So I don't say dirty words on the podcast. Figure that doesn't go over. I can be offensive. I don't think you can be offensive on Twitch anymore. I don't think you should try to be offensive on Twitch. Thimbo IHOP's the biggest Pop Gun simp. It's possible. Somebody has to be. Might as well be you. Interview you? I've interviewed like half your team already, dude. There's been enough IHOP content on the podcast. I can only sacrifice my ratings so much. I don't want your Tom. Oh, gosh, I gotta approve this thing, Silver. Yes, that's fine. Poor Tub Nug. Hey, shoutouts to women, though. Shoutouts to bald people. It'd be one of my favorites. Is that VIP Haya in chat? Wow. We got a very important person here. That's awesome. See, this is my brand, Silver. This is what gets the chat going. Do you guys know Popgun doesn't have a lot of hair? He's only 31 and he's bald. Dude, I started losing my hair. Since we're on this, since this is a topic you guys want to discuss, we'll discuss it. I started losing my hair around age 16 or so. 16. Oh, if you saw the picture I posted on Twitter today of me and Miss Popgun meeting, that wasn't our first time meeting, but that was like our earliest picture of us. I'm 19 years old in that picture. 19 years old. So if you and people were calling me bald like 2 years prior to that picture coming out. But man, I look at that picture and I'm thinking, man, if I had hair like that today, that'd be awesome. Those were the days. Unless they weren't. We didn't have Splatoon back in those days. I don't think I have early male pattern baldness. I think I just have baldness now. I don't think people look at me and say, hey, early. That looks like early pattern. Yeah, bad RNG. Did you get that pattern? That pattern from the bald boss? It sucks. My hair because of Splatoon. Boy, do I got news for you. By the way, now that Haya's here, are any of my mods in chat? Somebody's got to keep an eye on that dude. You won't stop anyone from attacking Damp at Riptide? I will. Damp, you just stay by me, buddy. Nobody lays a finger on Damp at Riptide. I wasn't. Don't worry, Aya. I wasn't. I wasn't planning on it. You're just the VIP. That's all you'll ever be in my eyes is very important. I'm too kind. I know. I'm well aware. When our plus voting is going to come out, probably right in the middle of the podcast. If they do come out, let it be known in the chat so I can glance over it during a break or something. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify. While you're canceling your overreaction registration to Genesis 8, once you found out Splatoon won't be there. Creating fake solo queue powers as a last-ditch effort to impress the Plus server voters. Celebrating my wife and I's 7th wedding anniversary. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Yes, today is our anniversary. No, I am not avoiding hanging out with my wife to do this podcast thing today. She is at work right now, so don't be giving the don't be all like, oh, Popcast doesn't hang out with his wife on his anniversary. Like, screw you. You don't know what we do. And yes, I think we're gonna celebrate tomorrow. So if you see me pinging for scrims tonight for Destiny troops, and you're like, oh, they don't hang out with me, it's like, kids, you wish you had a significant other that played video games and was cool with you doing stupid things like this on a weekly basis. So don't come at me. I know you're going to try to. What a week, bro. My goodness. Honestly, I was considering not doing the podcast today. I was there weren't any tournaments that needed to be covered. There weren't there were tournaments to be covered, but there wasn't anything low level specific that I normally spend a lot of time talking about. And I was like, well, maybe I should just skip doing the Monday episode for the first time ever and just do the Low Ink preview on Thursday. Thank God for you idiots that have Twitter accounts. Madhouse dominated Twitter for a couple of days. I'm not going to discuss the Madhouse situation. I've always said I want to avoid talking about drama topics unless I feel like it was something that was relevant to the podcast. And I feel like the Madhouse thing, although I could spend some time talking about it, I don't feel like that's the kind of drama I want to discuss here on the podcast specifically. So we're not going to talk about that. However, the Nintendo Tourney format got called out. That got discussed a lot on Saturday, so we'll talk about that. And of course, there was yesterday the whole mid-level fiasco that everyone and their mom had to give a comment on. So yeah, I'm glad you guys have Twitter accounts and you don't think before you guys say things, because it gives me content to talk about, which is what I'm going to be doing today, is a lot of talking about that stuff. Before we get into that, the news for this week of upcoming tournaments. It's Low Ink week. Always an exciting time, an entire week of events that we got planned here to celebrate this upcoming Low Ink this weekend. First off, we are going to have the grudge match the Deep Fried Octolings are going to be playing serious. We are flying in players from both teams to a secret location so that we can have a rematch between those two teams on LAN cable so that there is no DC or lag issues to determine a true champion in that one. Look for that stream coming out later this week. Also, JPEG's going to be doing a charity stream where 100% of the proceeds are going towards finding a cure for whoever runs the Thimbo IHOP Twitter account. Bless their hearts. That whoever does that they need a lot of help, and by God, we are going to find some help for that person. Hang in there, buddy. And on a more serious note, the Low Ink preview, one of the more actual events that go on during the Low Ink week, is going to be this Thursday here on the Popcast episode number 64. We're going to be previewing a lot of teams that are going to be signing up, including my top 10. And this is legit. The team I have at number 1, I say this every month, I know, but I actually feel really legit that the team I have at my number 1 this month is going to win it. I haven't felt this confident about a team I feel like is going to come in and win this Low Ink since Fluency back in December, the only time I correctly predicted a winner for the Low Ink. So be sure to come out for Tuesday or Thursday for that episode. If you want to be a team that gets mentioned on the podcast and you want to do your TOs a favor, the TOs that you guys love, you always give us a lot of love, sign up for this tournament. Dummies, do it early and do it now, so that we have more time to verify your team. Counter picks are going to be the theme this month. Hopefully this goes over well on Sunday. If it doesn't, it was all JPEG's idea. I had nothing to do with it. Today, we are going to be recapping a ton of tournaments from the past week because a lot of different tournaments happened. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but just more of a select 5 or 6 of them, just for the sake of my own sanity here. And chat with Banana Man about all this mid-level stuff that was going on or being talked about yesterday. But first, it's almost expected that we have something the whole community has to talk about after every single Nintendo Open that happens now. Obviously, with what happened in December with the whole Squid House fiasco, that dominated not just Splatoon, but basically the entire Nintendo community as a whole. That it's understandable that we're all going to be talking about that. Last week, as you recall, the Splatfest tea heard around the world. That kind of captivated Splatoon Twitter for an entire weekend and then some change after that. So we're kind of in a rhythm now of every Nintendo tournament that happens, we need to have a grand discussion about something afterwards regarding it. This time around, it's the format that's being called into question. Why? What? The ladder format? This is the third ladder format we've had now, and this is when people are now starting to say, hey, wait a minute, this format kind of sucks. We've done it 3 times now, and it was just now dawning on us that it might not be the best format to determine a champion. Okay, so how did this happen? In December, the tournament that we had in December, the first ladder format, it had a single elimination after the ladder stage, so it was more. It made a little bit more sense as far as determining it like a true champion at the end of the day, like who the best like top 5 teams are, as opposed to just the ladder format we had, where it was just 4 hours of the ladder format, and after that it was over, and whoever's just the last team standing just so happens to be the last team standing. So you take out that single elimination bracket at the end of it, where all the 64 teams that made it in the single elim were like the actual competitive teams that signed up. Like none of the maybe a few casual teams slipped in, but they were shown the door rather quickly in round 1. But I think the reason why it's being talked about now, 3 tournaments in to this ladder format, as opposed to when it wasn't before, is that this is the first week at least of this series of tournaments. Good morning, Dicey Bread. Where the actual big name teams are starting to play in this thing. Last week was the Rainmaker tournament. It was dominated by Starburst, as you would expect it to be. But the other big name teams that signed up for it, I believe Good Morning played in it. But Good Morning played in the Splat Zones one as well. But the team that took first place, not grand place, but first place was Arctic Moon, and the second place team was Pure Divinity. Not to throw any shade at Arctic Moon or Pure Divinity, Arctic Moon won the Ludi seeding ladder tournament, and Pure Divinity being a very strong team in their own right. But when you think of the top teams in the United States, some other teams kind of come to mind first. I'm talking about Climb, Sonder, FT Win, or not FT Win, as they went by in the Splat Zones tournament, and Quantum, who showed up back from the dead to play in the Splat Zones tournament as well. All four of those teams that I've mentioned did not play in the Rainmaker one, but did end up playing in the Splat Zone one. So we got more of top-level teams eyeballs on this tournament that weren't really on the tournament last week when Starburst was dominating everything. Across the board, only 15 more teams signed up for the Splat Zone one over the Rainmaker one. 140 signed up for the Rainmaker, 155 signed up for Splat Zones. You would think that number would go up. Little Squid League took 40 teams last week away from the Rainmaker one. So you think, okay, so no, all those teams are available. Yeah, the Megalodon Cup was happening. But Megalodon Cup mostly had EU teams sign up for it, so it wasn't like Megalodon Cup was stealing anything away from the NA Open, other than Resilience and ITAP. I see you guys. So I'm kind of surprised more teams didn't sign up for this one over the Rainmaker one. Maybe people were kind of burned out after the first Rainmaker one. Ladder is a bit of a grind, and that's I guess that's what top level's kind of getting at, is that they realize there's only like a couple of teams that signed up for this tournament that can actually hang with us. So that means just 3 hours of us trying to grind as many wins as we can against teams that can't even touch and can't even touch us to some extent. So that I get. But before we get into the format, we need to answer a critical question here. What is the purpose of this tournament? Like, who was this tournament designed for? And it ties into this mid-level discussion that we're going to be having later on in the podcast. Not everyone is going to get out of mid-level. The little bit of a breaking news here. This is the shocking kind of situation I want you guys to understand. If you are in mid-level, it is not guaranteed that you are going to get out of it. That might be the ceiling. That might be your ceiling, the cap that you personally have. And some of you, after you're done with this competitive Splatoon thing, you're going to look back and realize, wow, I'm glad I even made it to be considered a mid-level team or player or something like that. But the reason I say not everyone is going to make it out of mid-level and move up into the higher level or top level, whatever you want to call it, is because this community that we have, and we've discussed this several times, not just here on the podcast, but on several other people have mentioned this as well. This is a triangle-based community, right? Which means there are less people at the top than there are at the bottom. So for you to be if you're a mid-level person, if you want to move up to be considered a high-level person, to do that, you need to take somebody's spot, and that person needs to move down to mid-level. You can't just have mid-level grow all the way up to be in high-level, and then we just have more people in high-level than we do in mid-level. It makes no sense. A community doesn't work like that. Think about it in terms of Ludi divs, which I know a lot of you like to do. If you want to move up to being if you're a Div 2 team, and you move up to being Div 1, guess what? Somebody in Div 1 has to move down and take the spot you used to have in Div 2. You can't have 40 teams in Div 1. Somebody's got to... It's the law of equivalent exchange. Something has to be sacrificed for you to move up. So for this mindset of oh, well, I need to get out of mid-level and move up. There's no room for you until somebody creates room for you. So that's the thing. How do we create room for more people at the top? In order to do that, you need to make more room at the bottom, right? So that's why that's why I do the podcast here. This is why we talk about low level every single week, because the more attention we give to low level, the bigger low level gets, which makes the community, the pyramid, bigger for everyone. Top level gets bigger, mid level gets bigger because there's a better foundation at the bottom. The only way to make low level bigger, or I guess I should say the best way to make low level bigger, are these Nintendo tournaments. That is a fact. Because these Nintendo tournaments drag in so many casuals, so many people that have never really, pyramid scheme, so many people that have never played competitive Splatoon before will play their first tournaments ever in these Nintendo tournaments. Ask JPEG or myself, the head TOs for Low Ink. I know there's probably more eyeballs on this episode of the podcast that don't normally pay attention to things like Low Ink, but I can tell you personally from all the teams we've been verifying over the past year, whenever there's a Nintendo tournament, the Low Ink that happens the month afterwards, the registration for that sucker skyrockets. And there's so many times we're verifying people and we're looking at their tournament history. The only tournament history they have are these Nintendo tournaments. So every time one of these things happens, we get a ton of new blood injected into our community, which benefits everyone from top to bottom. You guys don't realize that. But the better, the healthier low level is, we all benefit from that as a whole because it makes everything bigger and it puts more eyeballs on all of our tournaments and organizations and participation numbers. Now, casuals and low level, they love Speed Ladder. They love it. And, the thing is, if this was a major, which it's not, and we're trying to think of this as a mindset of it being a major, it's not. But if this was, and everything's seeded and scripted in groups, right? If you have to play FT Win, or Climb, or Quantum, which Destiny Troops had to play all three of those teams on Saturday. After you play one of them and you get absolutely spanked by them, if in a group or Swiss stage or something like that, you just have to sit there and wait for everything else to happen before you can move on to your next match. It might be 5 or 10 minutes. With Speed Ladder, it's like, oh man, it turns out we can't beat FT Win. All right, let's just press this button. Oh, look, I already got a next match ready. Oh, we can just forget about that. We can just move on and we can go at our own pace. It's so much better. Swiss is kind of like, being a TO for a Swiss tournament, it's kind of like being a shepherd, right? And you got all your teams are the sheep, and you're just kind of trying to move them through each gate. Like you're trying to move them from one pin to the next pin to the other pin. And then it's frustrating because like you'll get like 90% of your sheep into the next pin, but there's still two sheep staying back, and they're not advancing because they're back there arguing about something else, about lag or something. And we're like, nah, I saw you teleport, nah. And the other goats or sheep is just like, nah, you took 10 minutes to get into the lobby, nah. So it's like, oh, it's so frustrating. Let's go. The next sheep can't start until we get you guys into this pin so that we can go in. Meat ladder, you look at the ladder farm across the road. And the shepherds are just kind of, they got all the gates open, and the sheep can just go back and forth as they please. There's no stop. There's no waiting. If two sheep are yelling at each other, who cares? Because the other sheep can just go up and down the ladder as they see fit. And that's, low level loves that stuff. Is it the best format to determine a champion? No, it's not. And I get that. Now, the teams that played in these tournaments, did it produce a true champion? Yeah. Who was supposed to beat Starburst in the Rainmaker one? I think Profound Indigo was the only team to take one game off of Starburst. Otherwise, they went 15-0 per match. Okay, so like they were gonna win, right? Well, guess what? They did win. It worked. Who is supposed to beat FT Win? Yeah, Quantum's good, Climb's good. Maybe controversial. So maybe some of you won't agree, but Sonder might be in that category as well. But none of those teams are on the same plateau, on the same mountain peak as FT Win is. So of course those teams are going to win. So yeah, the rightful team that won all of these tournaments so far. Was it probably a fun 4-hour grind for them? I don't know. Did they get a really nice prize at the very end of it? Yeah, I think that kind of makes up for it. Now the question is, what about second and third place, or in this case, first and second place, for since there is a grand prize that is the true first place? I could understand a little bit of confusion going on here. In the Splat Zones 1, the team that took second place was I Don't Know, Madness and Legend. And I forget the other guys off the top of my head. Sorry. Quantum took third place. Now, there was a tiebreaker that had to go into this one. The same record per match that both of these teams had. They were 15-3. But I Don't Know currently had the tiebreaker because they won more games technically than Quantum did. I Don't Know went 31-7. Quantum went 30-7. However, these two teams did end up playing against each other, and Quantum beat I Don't Know. So maybe that's where some of this kind of aggravation comes from. It's like, wow, we played for 4 hours and we actually beat the team that finished ahead of us, but they get a better prize than us just because they won one more game than we did. So I understand that level of frustration. And I don't know if that's where this is coming from specifically. All these people that were talking and just bashing the ladder format here. But I mean, I guess the only solution to that is just to add in a top cut. I would be open to this. Me personally would be open to a ladder format that was shorter. It was 4 hours, and you know, you don't have to play the whole 4 hours, but if you want to take home a prize, you pretty much need to play the entire 4 hours and get in as many matches as you can. But I think like a shorter, like a 2.5 hour ladder stage maybe, and then like a top 32, something like that, single elimination. You can't do a top 64 single elimination. That's going to drag on too much time. Like to get this done in one day, you can't do a 4 hour stage and a top cut on top of that, unless it's like a top 16 or something. But still, even that's like a 6.5 hour kind of tournament in one day, and that's a lot of time. But if you want to determine a true champion, it makes more sense to do a top cut after your ladder stage. So I get that. Maybe that's where the frustration is coming from. The alternative, though, think about where this tournament was before. You remember the old Nintendo tournaments from like the middle of 2020? It was single elimination. You would have 60 teams sign up for that. 300 of them are done in the first 10 minutes. Like this is infinitely better than the single elimination format, where like only like 30 teams were seeded. And if you were like a pickup team or you signed up late and you didn't get seeded, you might have there might have been some really strong teams that just lost round one because they got seeded as number 320 team in the bracket or something like that, you know? So the ladder format is infinitely better than the single elimination. But regardless, whatever kind of format they come up with, you can't please everybody. And we get in this mindset, especially with majors, where it's like, okay, well, let's do it at this time so that Japan can come and play as well, even though West Coast has to get up at 8 a.m. their time. And let's make this format to where it fits everybody, and let's make these single elimination brackets for all the teams that don't win a single game afterwards and all this. So it's like we do a lot to try to make the tournaments appealing to every single human being on the planet. And you can't do that. It's impossible, even though we're trying to do that. And somebody has to take the L here in these Nintendo tournaments. And I'm sorry, Top Level, but the community needs this more than you do. The community needs more new blood. It's more important to bring in the casuals and grow the community than it is to figure out, okay, who gets the extra $25 gift card from Nintendo, I don't know, or Quantum. They care about that, but the vast majority of us just care about who else is being brought into the community here. And gosh, we already have such a bad PR with the casuals. You stupid little kids will squid bag helpless babies and brag about it on Reddit and then farm their reaction on Reddit for Twitter clout. Like, you idiots are trying, like, you're driving the casuals away, and then like 2 years from now, those same people are going to be complaining about, well, this community's dead, it's never growing. That's because you chased away all the people that would be interested in joining it, you idiots. So like, my point is this isn't a major. Yeah, it's got nice prices. It's getting closer to being one. But right now, it's just a way for our community to grow. And ladder is the perfect format for this thing. We will get majors soon with scripted groups and multiple brackets. But until then, let's just be excited that this tourney even exists now after what happened in December. Like, we straight up burned that bridge with Nintendo. And now Nintendo is the one that's trying to rebuild that bridge. Do we really have to complain this quickly about that? Do we really? It was a great tournament, unless it wasn't. But let's move on to talk about some of the other tournaments that happened this weekend. Let's recap the weekend. Hiya, you're the real MVP, VIP. And of course, you know I'm going to be talking about your team on the weekend recap here. We'll get to that. First off, let's go with SOS 35. Happened on last Wednesday, and went to Gol de Lucas, getting the 4-0 sweep over Rising Matrix Sonata Project, taking third place. The Lucas team, they took second place last week, I believe, losing to BVSL. This time around, no BVSL, so they went on to dominate, going 15-1 per game. So congratulations to Gol de Lucas. Destiny Troops, some scrub-ass team I've never heard of. One Hammerhead, Bootleg Team 2, plus X Grisco. One Mako bracket. I think I might know those guys. Bootleg Team, that was one of those teams from Low Ink earlier. I think back in like the end of 2020. And the Grisco squad, I believe that was one of the teams that played a couple of SAC tournaments. So if that's the same team combined together, they won Mako bracket. Congratulations. And some team won the Lantern bracket, if I'm reading this right, the Wiggly Phantoms. Interesting team name there. Whoever those guys are, they won Lantern bracket. So congratulations to them. SOS, always a great tournament. Registration is capped at 32, and they are hitting 32 every single week. So make sure you sign up for that tournament early so that TOs can seed you properly. Moving right along onto testing ground.
In the match, they only need to hold this zone for about 5 more seconds in order to be able to take this and be the winners of Grand Finals, and they do! Way to go, Pulse! The winners of Testing Grounds 21 Grand Finals.
That was Alias, and I believe that is this person's name is pronounced Skep. On the call for Grand Finals of IPL's Testing Ground 21, which saw Pulse take down Jacob's Crib 4-2. The team, the players made up of Jacob's Crib are Hiya, Zuck, Blue, that's BLU, and Ethereal. Don't really know where Zuck, Blue, and Ethereal have been lately, like what teams they're on, what projects they're doing, but Hiya, a prominent member of the Destiny Troops team that you all know and love. Azure taking third place here. The theme for this month was bad maps. Walleye, Moray, Kelp, Camp, Arowana, all those maps that have been dead and gone from the Splatoon competitive scene made an appearance, reared their ugly head in this tournament. On purpose, that was the theme of the week. Some people complained on Twitter because it's a lot easier to complain for clout than it is to give actual feedback in a channel where TOs will actually see it. But who cares? It's just a tournament format. It was announced ahead of time, and people didn't complain until Friday. Like, that proves that people don't read the announcements of these tournaments, because it was announced it was going to be bad maps long before the map list was actually produced. It was fun to see. I commentated with the Magic 8 Ball for some of these formats, for some of the maps. It was fun to commentate them. It's not a format I'm interested in. I didn't play in it, and I don't think I would ever play in a tournament like that. But who cares? Not every tournament needs to cater to what I want. It doesn't mean we all can enjoy it. But it does mean that you can go and cry on Twitter about it, because that's the easy thing to do. Reef Rushdown, number 10 as we're moving along here. The team that won this one is, oh my gosh, is this a Pokemon? I think it is. Monor Pale Shiny, OMG. They beat Burb in a bracket reset, a double elimination bracket, third place. The team that won third place, there was a bunch of numbers. It was like too many to be a phone number, too many to be an area code. And I feel like if I just read out all of those numbers out loud, it's probably some sort of code that unlocks like a portal to hell behind me, and then I get sucked into another dimension. I'm too smart for that, so I'm not going to read that team name out. But whoever they were, they took third place in this double elimination bracket. Reef Rushdown getting 9 teams this time. A lot of teams that sign up for this Australian-themed time zone tournament that probably ended by the time you guys woke up to play in the NA ladder tournament. Moving right along, the Megalodon Cup, the first Splat Zone only tournament of the day on Saturday that happened an hour before the United States only ladder tournament. This one was won by Kensa Charger and 2 French team names that I'm going to butcher right now. Second place went to Il Sont Cool, and third place went to Por Porte. That is how you read that as an English-speaking person who doesn't use the correct pronunciation for French things. I actually did take French in college, by the way. My French professor told me that you could not Google translate your way to an A in his class, so I Google translated my way to a B in his class and took it. I don't care. Fourth place went to a team you're probably more familiar with, Yosemite, who won Gamma Bracket 2 months ago in Low Ink. Swiss into Top Cut was the format for this tournament, and 24 teams signed up, including some notable NA teams who skipped the ladder to play in the Megalodon Cup. So I see you, Resilience and ITAP, skipping the Nintendo one to support your local TOs. Also Geek Squids, but I believe Geek Squids are South American, which would ban them from the United States only tournament. Man, has South America been allowed to play in any tournament by Nintendo at all? Like, even when it was back in the North American tournament, they couldn't play in that. They can't play in the Europe ones. So, wow, I know Europe's getting screwed over here, but South America, I don't think has ever got a Nintendo tournament ever, if I'm not mistaken. Yikes. Let's give Dapple Productions some love here. They had a couple of tournaments before we finished recapping the weekend. Triton Cup number 10 was won by Oi Oi Baguette 3-2 over, and this is the name of the team, Alex Get Off of Mute. Won this double elimination tournament. They also had a speed ladder on Saturday, kind of a protest speed ladder saying, okay, Nintendo, you're not going to give us a tournament of our own. So what we're going to do is run our own EU speed ladder. So Dappled Productions did that. It was won by Me On My Way To. That's it. That was the name of the team. Again, Me On My Way To. Okay. Chewits Mafia takes second place, and Shatterpoint coming in third in that tournament. That was the weekend recap sponsored by the JPEG School of Tournament Organizing. If you want to become a TO and you don't want people to actually tell you what's wrong with your tournament to your face, and they would rather do it somewhere else, TOing might be the thing for you. Enroll in JPEG's JPEG School of Tournament Organizing today. Use hashtag code Popcast to get 15% off your tuition. Has Plus server voting been released yet? Is the question. The answer appears to be no. Which is fine. I guess we're kind of slightly going to be talking about that in a second. Twitter's safe for a little longer. Hey, it's gonna be half of the people being like, "Oh my gosh, Europe loves me. Thank you so much for voting me in," and the other half are just gonna be like, "What do I need to do? I don't understand. Like, somebody tell me what I need to work on," and then everybody just said, "Get results. Like, go get results." I've just summed up what Twitter's gonna be like in an hour. Hi, you need to go get results, dude. So moving right along to the final topic of the day. A tweet came out at some point yesterday. Oh, actually, this came out 2 days ago at 6:48 p.m. Eastern Time. This is by at bucket_blinky. It's really frustrating to see cracky mid-level players. I think that's supposed to be cranky. Cranky mid-level players getting tired of being stuck in that level because they don't have any way to face better / have the mates to get better. It is sad that the way to get this is to have contacts, but when you have no contacts, you're just stuck. And this was the tweet that kind of sparked a vast conversation across all of the community yesterday, including several people, I guess, that responded to my tweet of, "Hey, can somebody come on and talk about this?" So I've shared my thoughts about mid-level a lot here on the podcast, which I know you guys know because we're talking. You are avid listeners. You listen to a lot of what we do here on the podcast. But it's not that I'm not afraid to share my thoughts again, because you guys know I like talking. But I also want to give that microphone to other people who are in this community and pay attention to things. So welcome in Banana Man, experienced comp player, contributor to the SAC podcast, and currently up for suggestion into +2. So hello, Banana Man. How are you?
And you did your research.
I did my research.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah. I would say I've been in the community for all of Splatoon 2's lifetime, so I would say I'm pretty versed in mid-level because I've been in mid-level most of the time.
Are you the banana that used to be on the grillers like 2 years ago? Or do I have?
Yes, that is where I started.
Okay. I was about to say, I remember we have a long history with the grillers, and I remember a banana giving us fits back in like 2019 or something like that. So I was glad to see you move on somewhere else. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
What Banana Man? Where does that come from?
You can just call me Banana. I don't really like the man in my name. I don't know why I added it, but the story behind it is that when I was, I think in grade school, I don't know exactly what grade, I had a banana peel thrown at me during lunch at some time. And then people during the rest of the year started calling me Banana Man for some reason. And it just kind of stuck. So I just made it all of my online names pretty much.
There you go. That's I always ask people what their IGN is, and it's usually some anticlimactic story. Why are people throwing bananas at you? What did you do?
I don't know. no one like disliked me, so I think they just wanted to throw a banana and it just happened to land on me.
So so the theme of what we're talking about today is how to grow through the competitive community of Splatoon. Can you describe what your personal path was from where you started out in comp to where you are now?
Yeah, yeah. So technically, my first team wasn't actually the Grillers. I started off making my own team probably a few months after Splatoon 2 came out. And I think I named it Color Strike, if I remember correctly. And it was like, I think we were all A rank or something. And we played in like one tournament. And then I realized I really did not want to captain a team. It was a lot of pressure. And people didn't want to practice. And I didn't want to force people, but I felt like I had to because I was captain. So I ended up just disbanding the team and grinding ranked for a while. And then I found resources such as like Ink Academy and the Plus server when it was open to the public on Twitter. So I joined those, and from those I saw posts of looking for players. So like I saw one day that the Grillers were looking for, I believe it was a frontline, if I remember right. And I just tried out and got on the team. So you really just gotta to start off, you just gotta look around your resources, try and find some opportunities, and just go for it because you never know unless you try. And then after Grillers, I was only on Grillers for a few months. I joined Beastie Coys, which, if you don't know the team, we were, I think, Div 2 in the Ludi Season 9. And I didn't get much playtime on that team, I don't think, because to be honest, I was not that good at the game, and it felt like they brought me on kind of as someone they can mentor and like make them better and eventually play on the team. So that helped so much that they gave me that opportunity to grow with them and for them to show me everything about competitive because that's when I really started learning about all the stuff that goes on. And it took me I was on BC Coys for about a year. And my most recent team was Licensed to Krill. I was on that team about a few months ago. And I really liked them a lot. I just ended up leaving because I had school problems and school comes first sometimes, so I had to end up leaving. So now I'm just an FA doing mostly pickups in +3 and +2, which are very good resources to have. But I'm slowly climbing that ladder. And as you said, I got suggested to +2 this month, so I'm hoping to get in. And that's pretty much it up to this point.
You mentioned when you were on Beastie Coys that they brought you in as like somebody who would eventually play for like they were going to grow you into a player that they would want to play. That this kind of
Mhm.
sounds like a college team. Like, oh, we're bringing in a freshman, and by your sophomore or junior year, you're going to be like our starter kind of thing. Have you heard of other teams doing that? I think most of the time nowadays, it's if you're bringing in somebody, you're bringing them in with the mindset of we need you to play immediately to get results for us. Have you heard of other teams
Yeah.
doing that kind of mentor thing?
Um, I've never heard of like higher level or mid-level teams doing it, but I have seen some other like low-level teams kind of doing that. And I thought it was really good. It helped me grow a lot. And the reason why they did it is because they knew that one of their members had to leave in a few months. So they wanted to have someone ready by that time. So it helped me like build up that, what's the word for it? Not like connection, but synergy. That's the word. Before actually joining the team and playing with them in all the tournaments and everything.
So we're going to be talking about mid-level stuff. I guess it kind of makes sense to start with defining what mid-level actually is, because what mid-level is such a vague term, and it's subjective to all people. Like me personally, I feel like if you win low ink, that's not an automatic bounce out of low level. Some other people might disagree with that. I guess, in your opinion, what would you consider to be the mid-level?
It's definitely difficult to describe because we don't have really anything in the community that really sets where teams are besides divs and ludi. But even then, those now can get outdated. So I hate to use divs, but I would say about like div 4 to div 2, I'd say is about mid level. But there are gray areas either side, like you can make arguments for other teams and stuff like that. And then if we're referring to plus servers, I think all of plus 3 would be mid level. If you're in plus 3, you can consider yourself mid level. And then even some of the people in plus 2, I would also consider mid level.
And you've been in plus 3.
Yes,
recently, right?
I started off in plus 0 when that was a thing, when they
Right.
brought it back. And then it just transferred over to plus 3. So I've been in plus 3 all the months it's been alive.
Have you ever been in midpoint before? Back when that was, well, I guess that is still a
Yes.
thing. But
Yes, I was in midpoint for a bit. Allie suggested me, I remember. And that actually happened when I was also in plus 0. So I didn't use it a lot, but it seemed like a very good community and healthy like pickups that are happening constantly. I just didn't get a chance to use it that much.
so, with your experience being in these vote-in servers, do you feel like if you are in one of these plus servers that you will grow faster than somebody who isn't?
I don't think you'll grow any faster just because you're in a plus server. It all comes down to me, at least, how much you want to grind and how much you're willing to put in. Yes, the plus servers will give you more opportunities to do that, more pickups to do that with, but outside of the plus server, you can find people in like the Ludi server where people ping sometimes, and you just gotta look a little bit harder, but you can find things. And as long as you grind hard, even just playing solo helps, and maybe find a team and just put your head down and put in time is really all you need. Because if you're lazy in plus 3 or plus 2 and you don't play a lot, and someone outside of that plays every single day in pickups and scrims and tourneys, they're going to get a lot better, a lot faster than you will.
You know, it's you kind of mentioned that, and I'm going to jump ahead as far as the questions I sent you last night. But yeah, it's play the game, you'll get better for sure. You know how you are playing the game specifically. Like you can grind turf war, that's not going to help you as compared to somebody who's doing pickup scrims. But a lot of what high level players were saying last night in Twitter in response to this was literally just like, shut up and just play the game. Don't complain about the system. Do you agree or disagree with that mindset?
I think that mindset is flawed. I don't necessarily like I agree with parts of it, but disagree with others because you shouldn't saying shut up like to these mid-level players that look up to you is kind of harsh for them to hear. So I think putting it in better terms would serve it better. You definitely need to like not speak out on Twitter about stuff that's considered dumb. Like I don't like to use that word, but like things that you know that you shouldn't like be saying, or like you could fix without saying Twitter about it because like people were complaining. I don't think they should have been complaining necessarily.
Well, I guess one of the things I've seen, somebody said something like, FT Win grinded their asses off, and that's how they got to the top. But in my mind, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Those guys were born with more talent in this video game than I will ever. And, hard work works hard when talent doesn't, but
Hmm.
natural talent will always trump. Will always trump people that don't have natural talent. Like I don't think it's fair to compare anybody to FT Win. Like you're literally looking at the top of them. Like that's be like Bill Gates saying, if you want to be as rich as me, you just got to work hard. It's like, no. there's a lot of factors that go into that were clearly missing. And that was kind of the mindset I got from the just play the game forehead kind of comments that were going through. It's like like Guru in chat saying most high level players pull up the ladder behind them without realizing that. I don't know. I guess that's kind of a fair statement.
Yeah, it's FT1 is just in their own league at this point. And I watched Keo did a stream yesterday about this, and he let chat ask questions. And I don't really I don't really remember a lot of it, but I remember him saying that teams would reach out to FT Win after tournaments if they like took a game off them. And Keo would say we would pretty much always say no to those people. And to me, I feel like that doesn't make much sense unless you already have teams lined up that you always scrim, because you want to give those teams coming up a chance. And if you don't give them that chance and they reached out to you, which even then is pretty like out of their way, then you're just kind of, like Greg said, pulling the ladder from under you and not letting other people climb it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess I'm kind of in a similar situation because I do. Destiny Troops is a mid-level team, at least by your definition of mid-level. And since I do the Popcast here talking about low-level stuff, I do get a lot of people that reach out and say, "Hey, can we scrim you guys?" Or "Hey, we're excited to play you guys in a tournament," or something like that. And it's like I can't say yes to every single one of them, because if I do, then I'm scrimming nothing but low link teams for an entire week. And then when we go and play in midway or whatever, it's like, oh, we're not ready for this speed yet, because we're constantly. So like I get, say, like, you can't say yes to everybody. I understand that.
Right.
Is there, but like, is there like a requirement maybe from top level to like pay it forward to the teams that are below them in any kind of sense? Like, do we need like the high level players to help everybody move up?
I don't necessarily think we need them to help us. I just think it would make it go slightly faster. But even if you're just playing teams at your own level, as long as you're like watching out for your mistakes, or even VOD reviewing afterwards to see what mistakes you're making and then trying to correct them, you're still going to grow just as fast as you would scrimming FT Win.
And another thing that kind of popped into my head is, on the flip side, yeah, like we're asking like these top level players to help us, but on the flip side, if we play them in a tournament and we get a quad on them, like we're posting that immediately on Twitter. If we take a game, like one game off of somebody above us, we're freaking out on Twitter. Azure, I was talking about this with my team yesterday. Azure plays in testing grounds. They get upset by a team that didn't make top cut. All 4 players on that team tweeted out 2-1 against Azure. Like, they're excited. I get that. And then they lose. Azure loses to another team in semifinals. Like half of those people, we 3-0'd Azure. So like Azure, every single loss Azure takes is like somebody is freaking out on Twitter that they beat them. Like if you're, which again, you're excited about that. But if you're Azure, you're probably not super thrilled that there's every single loss you take is celebrated by multiple people. And I guess that kind of leads to a little bit of a backlash too, to some extent.
It's hard for me to relate to that because I've never been that team that people freak out on Twitter for beating. I think one time on LTK, we lost in tournament to someone and then they tweeted about it on Twitter. And to me, that was cool to see that someone was doing that and freaking out that they beat us. Because, like, we're not high level. Like, it's cool to see that people wanted to beat us and really were excited about it.
Right.
But I get how it could be annoying at some point, especially if it's constantly. So I don't necessarily think you should bring it up on Twitter every time you upset someone.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rite of passage. It's like, oh, you're somebody that people are excited to beat. But yeah, I think somebody did beat License to Krill like a couple of weeks ago and was super, which is justifiable. That's a good beating License to Krill is a good win for a lot of teams. I guess kind of jumping back here, getting into the plus server thing. In like this particular situation happened. It was the second month of +3's existence. They had a purge and like downvoted the vast majority of the suggestions. And what the result of that was, there were less people in +3 than there were in +2 at the end of it, which makes that's not how a pyramid works at all.
Right.
Is the system where the plus servers are being run by the players voted into the system, does that work well, or do we need more of like what Launch Point does, where there's like an admin team controlling every aspect of it as far as who is allowed in and who gets kicked out of the server?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I feel like all of the players in any of the plus servers very much think in a hive mind, except for maybe +1, because there's a lot less people. But I feel like if a few people start saying something, like for that month, for example, a few people were saying stuff on Twitter about how +3 needed to be purged, and then everyone started bandwagoning on it, and then it just becomes this whole thing as if we're just like some random swarm of bees with one mind, and we all just downvoted because a few people said so. But in general, I think it's better for the players to be all voting, because I feel like one admin or one team of a few people can't know everything about everyone. They can't like know them personally, and they're not playing pickups with them every day like you are if you're in the plus server with them.
You kind of mentioned the bandwagon thing. That kind of put a thought in my head. Do you think there's ever been a time where, as far as the bandwagon goes, that other players would jump in on the bandwagon because they know if they were to go against the hive mind that it could result in them ultimately getting voted out?
Yeah, I feel like that could definitely happen. As long as you keep it to yourself, I guess, and just quietly not do what everyone's saying, then it's fine. But if you start speaking out about it and people don't like it, yeah, they'll definitely downvote you just because they don't like your opinion. And that is messed up, but it's how it happens sometimes, unfortunately.
That's the high school popularity mindset mentality. I'm not, I'm not in the plus servers. I don't know if I want to actually try to get into it. It's just it's the mindset. I mean, I understand the value of being in one. It's just the whole campaigning on Twitter to try to get people to vote is every single month basically is something I think I'm at an age where I don't need to be messing with that kind of stuff anymore. But as far I don't want to dunk on the plus servers because I'm not a part of it, but I think there is value to it. I feel like it's not a completely solved system, but I guess as far as you being in it, would you say what would you rate your experience overall? Would you rate it as something positive that you've been a part of?
Yes, I think it was positive. The reason for that, at least for me, is because I got to meet a lot more people. And like people always say, you need connections to move up. And I feel like I got a lot of those connections in plus three. So it did help me a lot. And then I started getting, because okay, I'll explain since you're not really in the plus server. The plus two or plus one people also can ping in plus three for pickups.
Mm.
So whenever a plus two player pings, it's usually plus two, plus one players don't usually ping there. We call it the blue named privilege because whenever a plus two player pings, they immediately get what they need, whether it's a scrim or plus one or whatever. So I try to always jump on those if I can and get that better experience.
Getting blue named, that's a verb now, I'm seeing. Wow.
Yeah, because I Turtle, not to call you out, Turtle, if you're watching, but Turtle gets blue named a lot because he'll ping for like a plus three, and then someone in plus two will ping for a plus three a few minutes after him, and that plus two player will get a pickup before he does.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that does kind of put some things into perspective there that I wasn't aware of. Go ahead. Hey, this was a really good chat. I'm glad you were able that you reached out and came on. This was good. Go ahead and plug yourself a little bit.
Okay. I don't really have anything important. I don't really post on Twitter, so my only shout out is plus two me in voting this month. Thank you very much.
You mean for next month? Because
yeah, next month. This one already ended. I forgot.
So there you go. Hey, thank you again for reaching out and coming on to the podcast. This was a good conversation. Enjoy the rest of your. Were you on summer vacation now?
Yeah.
When do you go back?
In the middle of August, about a month.
Okay, that's nice. So enjoy the last month of your vacation, and I guess we'll see you in solo queue at some point as well.
Yeah. See you hopefully in a tournament because we played you guys in ladder and that was fun.
Yes, we owe you guys one from that. So we'll see you in tower control. We'll get you then.
Yes. Okay.
So that was Banana Man, currently free agent, hoping to get into the plus two server and I guess a part of licensed Krill in that ladder tournament that we played against on Saturday. That a really good conversation. I'm glad that I tweeted that out and hoped somebody who actually is involved in some of these things come in and kind of talk about their experience with mid-level and the plus servers and their thoughts about that, other than just me saying the same things I've been saying week after week. The shut up and play the game kind of comments from top level, I don't agree with that at all. It's I'm a millennial and I understand that some people in chat are not millennials. We're in different stages of life. We millennials as a whole grew up with this mindset of being told, go to college, you're going to find and study what you want to do, and you're going to find a job, and it's going to be great. And a lot of millennials did that, and we went to college studying what we wanted to study, and then we graduated with a ton of debt and a degree that we found out was ultimately worthless because everybody had one. And it was like, oh, this actually kind of sucks. So when it's like, just shut up and play and you'll be fine, that millennials have heard that before. Oh, just work hard and whatever dreams you have, you can accomplish. No, we found out that's not true. You can work, in some instances, you can work as hard as you possibly can. There could be some dude working half as hard as you that is going to reach higher aspirations in what your field is for things that you can't control. So, and that's why I'm saying not all of you are going to get out of mid-level. If you're in mid-level hell, as they say, some of you, that might be your cap. Just learn to enjoy it. Like, it just, you'll appreciate how good you were at this game later on in life. It might seem weird to say now, but esports is going to be more of a thing as we all get older. You'll probably appreciate how good you actually were later on compared to where you were now, even if you don't reach the quote unquote top level. But that's going to do it for today's episode of the Popcast. If you would like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, feel free to reach out to me on my socials below. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, Discord Popgun #5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, Anchor.fm /Popgun. Kiki is streaming, so let's go raid Kiki. Come back on Thursday for the low ink preview. I am going to tell you who is going to win. That is 100% true. I feel really strong about the team that's going to win this week. Make sure you sign up for low ink. Make sure you keep wearing a mask when applicable. Make sure you get vaccinated when if you have the opportunity to do so. And enjoy the show that's going to be on Twitter starting now, I guess.